Alrighty, guys. So, sorry for the later stream. I was aiming for about 3 o'clock, but I had some stuff I had to deal with. Anyways, today's goal is to kind of cement what the heck I'm doing in Season of Mastery. Not Season of Mastery, Season of Discovery. Keep thinking Mastery. Anyways, but yeah, so yesterday I kind of thought I was going to do like a paladin and like take up some like mining and blacksmithing and like with a heavy focus on fishing as well because Scotty's video the other day was emphasizing like all the cool shit you can get from it. That would require you to kill like really high level stuff. So that seems pretty cool. I guess let me try something here. As I haven't really done this before, I'm gonna see if I can't add a nice little paint overlay here for us. Let's see if it's gonna work. Alrighty. Oh wow, that did a thing. That's interesting. Apparently paint doesn't really want to be captured. So it actually it slowly gets captured as I move my mouse over it. That's weird. All right, we're just gonna not do that then. Let me try something else then, just so I can try and get kind of like a little, like I guess doc or something to kind of like sort out some of my ideas. That way you can kind of follow along, and I'm just not typing into nothing here. All right, let's see if this works. I'm gonna edit this. Go ahead and grab that. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna try to blow this up a bit too. That's just really too tiny, right? Ooh, maybe that's a bit too much. All right, there we go. Let's make it a bit smaller, maybe. It seems pretty tiny. Let me see if I can't change some font sizes here. Make it more readable for everyone. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe it goes away because I zoomed in too much. Yeah, let's zoom back out. Let me make this, I don't know, like 24 classes. There we go. That looks a bit better. Let me just double check here. Sometimes it's not as obvious as you'd like it to be. Okay, yeah. So that's pretty readable. We're gonna go with that then. All right. So classes ideas, right? At least initial thoughts was druid, paladin. Kind of looking at my notes I was jotting down the other day. Druid, paladin, and I was considering a priest as well. I know I had talked yesterday about a warlock. I'm gonna call that alts here. So let's grab that. There we go. Toggle that off. So alts, right? Which ultimately kind of became a warlock, a mage, and a warrior. For the warlock, or not the warlock, the mage. I'm kind of meh on. Like I like the idea that they could be a healer, and I don't know if I really want to go down that route. Warrior, I feel like for me, that really would depend on if we get, was it Titan's Grip? Titan's Grip, for like dual wielding, two-handers, because that would be really cool. Warlock, just for the fact that you get some really cool spells, like the Metamorphosis. That does require like somebody to tank, so kind of iffy, but like definitely thinking druid for sure. I'm more in the boomkin / resto kind of vibe for it. Like, I've played Feral, I liked Feral, but Boomkin Resto for sure. Paladin, I'm kind of leaning towards Ret and Holy. Priest. I'm honestly not quite sure. Like, Shadow could be fun, but obviously a healing spec of some sort. I don't know if it'd be Holy or Disc. Because it would really just depend on the runes and stuff. And then Professions, obviously, you know, that'll vary by class, but honestly, I feel like, you know, all the secondaries to a degree are going to be incredibly important. Obviously, cooking is going to be really good. I mean, it's not, I guess it's not really a mandatory thing, right? Because you can just get you can just buy the stuff from the auction house, I guess, if you have money, or if you're in a guild, maybe somebody will bring it. Kind of like how, you know, you only need one person to like really do a feast in like Wrath Classic, I think, if I get that right. Obviously, first aid is super helpful, but I feel like that's class specific. Like if you're like a warrior or something that can't heal themselves, right? Let's see what else. Fishing, I feel like, is going to be mandatory for sure because of just all the stuff you can get from fishing that we found out from Scotty's video yesterday. So, and then the professions, like, I haven't really looked into it too much, but it does seem like you probably your standard like gathering, and then like your I guess, because I can't think of the word, like consuming profession, right? So like if you like mining, blacksmithing and stuff, still kind of not really sure, because I remember seeing some of the really cool like epics you get from the professions. I can't remember if they were bind on pickup or not. So if they are bind on pickup, then I feel like it's a no-brainer that you're going to need a like a blacksmithing, a tailoring, or like a leatherworking, depending on your class. But yeah, so this is kind of where I'm at. I'm leaning towards Paladin still, but I have a couple videos here. Like we have the new what's new in WoW Classic Season of Discovery thing here from featuring Platinum WoW, and it's only a 3-minute video. I don't think it'll really cover the things we actually care about. And this is a kind of a class picking guide, so I'm not quite sure what that's going to entail. I assume just kind of like the highlights, kind of like yesterday, of some of the runes and stuff. This one here, though, from Scotty's, really, really massive. Like, it's an hour and 38. I don't know if we're going to get to that today because I started so late. We'll see. We might just cherry pick some of the classes I'm interested in and just, unfortunately, exclude some of the others. Like, it might literally just be me looking at Druid, Paladin, and Priest, depending on how I feel by the time we get to this video. And then kind of like the same thing, this one's super long. It is a bit outdated by 3 weeks, so I don't think we're going to watch it because there's been changes to nerf. So I guess I'm just going to nix that one right off the get-go. So we're just going to jump on in and see if we learn anything new now.
The drums of war sound again, and the newest experience being added to Classic WoW is the Season of Discovery.
Yes.
A familiar yet different classic experience which focuses on exploration, open world activities, and wild, never before seen player progression with unique gameplay. I'm Platinum WoW, and let's uncover all of the cool new features in this unique classic experience.
Alright.
First, let's start with the discovery aspect of the season. All around Azeroth, we see our favorite locations, monsters, quests, loot, and experiences, but with some unique twists, like hidden areas, never before seen quests, and new monsters.
I am curious about like hidden locations. Is it going to be like you see like a glowing object that somehow opens up a trap door that you go under, kind of like hidden, or like there's like a you're in a cave or something, and there's like a wall that looks slightly discolored, and you like smack it or something with like an AOE, and it crumbles, and you go down that passageway. Like that would be kind of cool. I am curious about the quests. Like they probably already covered this, but I'm just like, are they just going to be generic? Like, you're in Stormwind or something, and say you hit level 10, and like you have like a class quest or something, but then like you also see like there's a new quest, maybe it's associated with your class. I mean, like I feel like that would make the most sense since the runes are class specific. But I'm very curious. Same with the monsters. Like, are they going to be brand new monsters? Are they going to be are they just going to be reskins? Like most, some of those like dragon flying mounts, right? So I'm very curious. Let's bring that up because I lost it. There we go.
Hidden amongst these little discoveries,
Oh,
you might
yeah,
find
there
the
we go.
Season of Discovery's most exciting feature. Runes. Runes are items that you can engrave on your armor, which kind of work like a secondary enchantment. These runes can provide active or passive abilities from future expansions or entirely new ones that
Like, I'm not sure how I feel about limiting them to certain slots. Like, I get to a degree like where they're going, because if you could just pick and choose like numerous things from waist or hands and like put them on anything, like that's kind of, I assume that's kind of like their balancing, right? Like same with like talents. Like you only have so many talent points, you can't choose everything or else it would be just too crazy. But I do wish there was a bit more flexibility in terms of that. Like I don't know how they would balance it though. Like if you were to just what is a good idea here? Like if you were to like give them points, like right, like how you normally see those like little memes or whatever. It's not even a meme actually. But like little things where like you have $15, build your Pokemon party or something, and you have like a row that's $5, a row that's $3, a row that's $1, that kind of stuff. Like it'd be interesting if they just did it by like a point system. That way, like for instance, you can get Horn of Lordaeron and Aegis. But like that would be like if they did we'll just continue like the 15 analogy thing. So like Horn of Lordaeron and Aegis, they're like, I don't know, we'll say like they're 6 points each, right? So you get two of those, and that's now 12. So you only have 3 points remaining. So that like it limits your option. Like that could be a good way to balance it versus just tying them specifically to certain slots.
can change the playstyle of your class. Some examples include paladins with Avenger's Shield,
That's cool.
priests summoning an army of void minions, or total
You see, went back
paladins
too
with
far.
Avenger's
That's cool.
Shield, priests
This I still think is really stupid, because like I like that you get like basically mages. I can't remember the spell, but the cloning thing that they do, right? And then normally they throw like frost bolt or fire bolt or something. I think it's stupid that like you get your void minions and like they do clearly the most priest thing ever, which is they beat them with maces, swords, and axes. It just seems a little weird. Like I feel like since it's kind of like it strikes me as, since they're void minions, right? This is clearly like a shadow rune. I feel like they should either apply dots, like which I guess would kind of stupid because like that it would already be dotted, right? Like even if, yeah. Anyways, so maybe they should do like some type of what is that, a priest spell? I can't remember, but like when they channel it, some type of drain. Maybe I'm thinking warlock, but yeah, like something more, I don't know, shadow priest than smacking them. It's kind of stupid.
summoning an army of void minions, or totally role-defining runes like Warlock.
Like this right here is fucking awesome. This makes me want to do the alt warlock down here. I am kind of sad that it's more of a tanking thing. Like I get it, the whole point, but it'd be cool if you could do it in such a way that you also can like use it as DPS. Like that would be cool if like this rune was kind of like how you play Feral Druid, right? You could be like a Feral DPS or you could be a Feral tank. Like using Metamorphosis in two different pathways could be really cool if they allowed that. I don't know, maybe there's a way to do that.
Shamans and rogues now being able to tank, or mages being able to heal with time magic. Another core feature of the Season of Discovery is level banded content. When the servers are first released, all players will have a max level of 20.
See, this is kind of cool. I like the level banding to a degree. Like, I'm looking at the numbers. 25 seems like a weird number in my brain, but like I'm okay with it. And then I see 40, 50, and 60, and I think to myself, why didn't you just do 30 then? Why is it 25? Why didn't you just go 30, 40, 50, 60? Or like go 25, 35, 45, 55, 60. But even then, that's kind of weird, right? Because it doesn't all end on like my brain would be like an even number, right? So it almost makes me go like you could have just done 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. But I guess maybe they just needed to fit 4 zones, and the 25 makes perfect sense for Black Fathom Deeps or something like that. Maybe it was their thought, or maybe it has to do with like when you get skills, right? Like I think 40 is like a big moment for a lot of classes, like druids get like Boomkin form. I want to say priests get shadow form at 40 and stuff like that. So I think that maybe that's more like big defining abilities on some of these level brackets. Maybe is kind of why they went that way.
5, and then over time it will be raised to 40, then 50, and finally 60.
Strength and honor.
The unique thing about this is that for each level bracket, there will be new, never-before-seen endgame content that players can participate in. For level 25, the Black Fathom Deeps dungeon will be transformed into a 10-player raid, with new bosses, mechanics, and loot. Each level bracket will have a new raid, and are aimed to be approachable to most players, but interesting enough to provide a challenge with a difficulty akin to the original raids of...
I do wonder like how that's gonna work, because they're focusing on a 10-man aspect for like at least the level 25 raid. It does make me wonder if the new raids that they're introducing, at least as level up ones, right? If the 25, the 40, the 50, and the 60 will all be 10-man, or if like they'll eventually start scaling it up, because I can't imagine like the current 60 raids being downgraded to 10-man. I imagine they're going to stay 40-man, which then goes. They've mentioned that they might add in new raids, right, outside of like the 40, 50, 60 level up ones. Are those going to be 40? Or are those going to be like 10? Like I'll be very curious. And at that point, are they only going to have one difficulty? Will they scale them up to heroic or mythic? Like where? I'm very curious.
Of classic WoW. But when you're traveling to the new Black Fathom Deeps raid, be careful, as the contested zone of Ashenvale is now rife with conflict.
This I'm looking forward to, because at least maybe I've missed it, but I'm pretty sure like this is gonna be open world PvP stuff, which is gonna be super cool. Like I am super open to that idea, especially if I get to be like, if I end up, honestly, if I choose any of my top 3 here, the Druid, the Paladin, and Priest, I think I'd love open world PvP, because I would probably just be, like in that case, you know, if dual spec is a thing, which I need to look into, honestly. You know, Shadow during that would be fun. Ret could be fun in its own way, and then same with like a Resto Druid, just like to troll people and like basically be unkillable for the most part. Would be pretty cool.
New feature is Battle for Ashenvale. This new feature transforms the zone into a world PvP hotspot, where Horde and Alliance players will battle over territory and defeat enemy war masters and leaders in something similar to Alterac Valley. With this event, you can earn reputation with the Silverwing Sentinels or the Warsong Outriders, and obtain new rewards like mounts that can only be ridden in Ashenvale, new helms.
You see, I don't understand like the mounts being only in Ashendale. Is that like, are they gonna be quicker? Like, what's the point? Is it because in classic like, well, I guess if you're getting mounts, right, you're getting a mount at 25. Maybe that's the caveat there, right? Because normally in classic you'd get a mount at 40, right, and it'd be buku box and all this stuff. So I wonder if by limiting it to the zone, any level theoretically before you know in the 1 to 25 level bracket, right, could get that mount and ride it around that zone. Maybe that's like the balance they're looking at. That could be interesting concept. And then in regard to that, I imagine it would just probably be, was it only 60% movement speed, right? Because at that point it'd be kind of crazy if you gave them like 100% movement speed, like a level 60 mount in a level 25 area. That'd be really crazy. Like, I'd be all up for that personally. Less walking is nice, honestly, but it's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
And weapons.
Oh,
This is just up to be written.
let's see those
Ashen Vale,
weapons.
new helms and weapons.
All right, 5. Okay, okay. It's just the same sword, just with a different. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'd be curious because I haven't like played Retribution Paladin on a classic era server, so I like if I'm gonna go rep Paladin, I really do need to look into stuff. Like I feel like as a warrior, I mean, obviously, I feel like that would be really good. But as a Paladin, is that good? Because I think you need like more int based, more spell power and spell hit stuff because a lot of how your abilities work. But maybe that's not gonna be the case.
This is just a brief summary of the content being introduced in the Season of Discovery, and there will be so much more to explore within the future phases of these seasonal servers. Altogether, this experience is about Azeroth being the main character. It's about exploring undiscovered lands, creating unique builds for your character, battling the enemy faction and world PvP events, and delving into new raids with
I am curious, like going forward, because they mentioned world PvP events. I wonder if, like the 40, 50, 60 bracket or cap that they're going to be having, if we're going to get one new PvP event zone per cap, or if they'll like introduce more throughout the world. And then I'd be curious what those zones would be, because like I would imagine Torn Mill could be a good like 40 maybe. But even then, that feels too high level, right? Because Torn Mill and like that in South Shore, right? Or maybe I'm wrong on that last part. But Torn Mill for sure. I think it's South Shore versus Torn Mill. Anyways, that's like I think level 30 max is what my brain's trying to remember. So like that wouldn't be good for a 40 cap. And I'm like, I have no idea where else. I guess maybe. Yeah, no, I actually don't know. Same with like level 50. I'm like, I have no idea.
with your guildmates. Now is the perfect time to return to the world of Azeroth and explore the familiar yet different lands in the Season of Discovery.
Super hyped. I would love to know how long. Maybe they've already said. Let's look at some of these comments here. Yeah, we'll call that. I'm not gonna focus too much on that. All right, where are we at? It was a search. All right. Okay, cool. This is a shorter 15-minute one. So that was a nice overview. Like and obviously I didn't learn anything new in terms of like classes and professions like I was hoping. That makes sense. It was just kind of a brief overview. Hopefully this guy will give me some enlighten me a bit more.
Which class should you pick in Season of Discovery?
Turn that
This is
back
the
down
biggest
a bit.
question everyone
There we go.
faces right now. Because each and every class from Classic World of Warcraft is getting massive changes that completely redefine the way we experience the game.
Oh, this is so
hopefully by
cool.
the end of this
Going back a bit. It looks like, I don't know, maybe number 4 here is the Metamorphosis. Oh no, it's over here. It's got to be this thing over here. That's got to be the activated Metamorphosis form. That's kind of weird because I would imagine they just kind of like keep it like a druid or like a paladin aura over here.
massive changes
maybe that was just going to be too difficult for them to do, and they'd rather just make it like a proper spell on on a hot key or something.
That completely redefined the way we experience the game. So hopefully by the end of this video, you should have a much better understanding of which class you should pick to play. Because today I'm going to give you all the pros and cons of each class, as well as what to expect from their performance and playstyle. And right off the bat, if you're wondering if your class that you love so much is gonna be good, well, then probably, because every single class in the game gets a lot stronger. Every single build in the game gets a lot stronger, even the ones that were conventionally thought of as meme builds. And bear in mind, each class can have class changes happen.
Shockedin? Maybe. That could be cool. But I don't think that's still like TBC. Maybe I'm wrong.
To them. There were some recent buffs and nerfs, and I'll try to address them in this video as well. But at least gone are the days of bringing
7 days ago?
26
Okay.
Fury Warriors to a raid and having everyone else just be there as support. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't play, because this season is all about having fun.
That's fair, but I'm sure at the end it's still gonna be about which class is the best. But maybe that won't be till level 60, right? So maybe you'll get some I guess quote unquote easier maybe pugging or maybe raid slots in.
And discovering new things. So with that being said,
Because if as he said, the 26 Fury Warriors, right, or whatnot, if that still ends up ironically being the same, then that's what people are gonna do.
let's dive right in. So let's start with the Warriors, the quintessential kings of Classic. And they're the kings of Classic for a reason, because they scale incredibly well as the game progresses. Getting stronger gear and more buffs benefits the playstyle of Warriors completely, because the more damage they do, the more rage they generate, and the more rage they generate, the more damage they can continue doing. With runes like Flagellation and Consumed by Rage, Warriors are guaranteed powerhouses at the higher levels. They also have runes that buff both dual wielding and two-handed specializations, making it so that you can play with either of these playstyles.
Hear me out though. Titan's Grip. I'm gonna be a broken record about this. Give me Titan's Grip, and I will make a warrior alt.
If you want a DPS. And as tanks, there was some data mining of a hidden gladiator stance, which would allow warriors to wear a shield while also still doing pretty strong damage and having incredible threat, which is kind of the quintessential aspect.
There's a gladiator stance. That's for DPS, right? In WoD, it was a DPS spec. You could go to a prot DPS spec. So if it has threat, then I think that's stupid, because I just think that's stupid, because it shouldn't even be called gladiator stance then. If they're trying to invoke like how it was in WoD, that just makes no sense. That should be so stupid.
Of Classic WoW. The only downside to Warriors right now is that at level 25, they're missing a massive part of their
I keep
toolkit.
hearing that.
As the class scales with the more power they get, the lower levels also tend to feel the most weak. For DPS, the talent Flurry alone would give them 30% more attack speed and bring their class more online. So don't worry if you're not the absolute Giga Chads within Phase 1, because Warriors are still the best class for scaling in World of Warcraft Classic, and they always have been. Paladins are looking like one of the biggest winners
here
of
we go.
Season of Discovery. As tanks, they finally have a much needed taunt ability. As damage, they rise from the ashes to be DPS kings. And as healers, they remain one of the most versatile and powerful specs with a completely well-rounded kit that makes them necessary for every raid group. Paladin tanks are built for pulling large amount of enemies and AoEing them down.
Seems
Walking
like you
with their
just
shields
can't
to
lose
reduce
as Paladin,
incoming
which would be
damage,
really
and the
nice,
Hand of Reckoning
honestly.
rune finally gives them that much needed taunt. It also gives them an added 80% to all of their threat generation, so they no
that's
longer
cool.
will ever have to worry about losing aggro. They can also
Wait,
do
wait,
more
wait.
AoE damage.
Wait. While you know this ability, okay, you don't even have to use it. You just have to know it. Threat bonus. Holy shit. Okay, that's really helpful. Now I'm over here toying with the idea of tanking. I'll see.
So they no longer will ever have to worry about losing aggro. They can also do more AoE damage if they decide to grab Divine Storm, and Avenger's Shield is a ranged ability that absolutely...
That's interesting. My brain's never thought of Divine Storm as a tanking thing, because it's ret specific and it's usually always at like the bottom of the ret tree. That would explain that. Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a version of the game where you can get Divine Storm in a tank spec. That'd be interesting.
Absolutely pumps. As far as damage goes, Retribution Paladins just received quite a large nerf, but that nerf is not actually hurting them enough to bring them down from one of
Wait, we just got a large nerf? I'd love to know what that is.
the strongest DPS classes in the entire game right now. The nerf they received specifically made it so that their Seal of Martyrdom no longer hit 3 targets at one time for sustained cleave. Instead, it is now a seal to return mana to the Paladin himself.
So it was AoE cleave, and now mana?
As well as the rest of the raid. But
let's back that up.
Return mana to the Paladin himself as well as the rest of the raid.
That's pretty fucking cool, because hopefully that would solve mana issues, because I feel like that's an issue that Ret Paladins have in Classic era. I could be wrong. But then you basically are kind of like giving passive mana regen. I don't know if it's so really passive, or if it's every time you just Judgment for an amount of seconds. But that's really nice, because that almost feels like you need at least one Ret Paladin, like, or would want one Ret Paladin for sure for that that mana regen. And then it also makes me wonder if it's, well, maybe it said it here. While the seal is active, it just needs to be active. Wait, let's read this again. Fills you with Holy Spirit for 30 seconds. Yeah, okay. Wait, it's only 30 seconds. It's a seal that lasts 30 seconds. I don't know how I feel about that. That seems kind of lame. Anyways, 30% more weapon damage up to 3 nearby. Okay, well, oh, that's right. That doesn't happen anymore, and you lose health. Okay, so this is the old one. This isn't the new one, right? Because he said that they don't target the three people anymore. So we'll assume the rest of this is correct here. While the seal is active, your party members within 40 yards. Okay, so it's restricted to party. So, and you get 2% of all damage you take. Interesting. So I wonder if they just gutted the 3 targets, kept it to 30 seconds. I'm sure there's a breakdown for this, like on patch notes or some shit. But we're just going to make some assumptions here. So we say 30 seconds. When you do damage, you lose 2% health, which then gives your party members within 40 yards of you 2% more mana gain from the damage you take. So, like, over 30 seconds, it's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of feels like an AoE Innervate or something, to a degree, with just, like, you're giving, like, AoE, or maybe like a priest's, like, hymn or something, because they have, like, a couple, right, where they heal and they also regenerate mana, I think. So that seems really cool. So I'd be very curious to see if that 2% is also to you. So, like, just you and your party constantly getting 2% while it's up, which could be really good, and that would definitely be worth like a 4% base mana use to activate it. That'd be really cool. And it makes me wonder at that point, right, if you have, and this is a rune, right? I think this is a rune, so it wouldn't be spec specific, right? So theoretically, I guess you could have this on as a healer too, but it feels like you'd almost want to have maybe like a paladin per party group. So, like, if you have a 40-man group, you would want, was it at least 8 paladins, right? Because a group of 5, yeah, you'd want at least 8 paladins, so everybody has this mana regen, maybe.
it is now a seal to return mana to the paladin himself as well as the rest of the raid. But the paladins can just choose to grab Divine Storm instead, and the cooldown of Crusader. But the paladins can just
okay. So they're balancing. Okay, wow, that's rough because I would want to choose Divine Storm. So that sucks since he's making it seem like it's on like the same slot. Damn, that's rough because I love Divine Storm. That'd be so cool. Whoa, it actually heals people? I didn't realize it. Is that new? I don't remember Divine Storm healing people. That would be pretty cool. Could also make for an interesting healer too, maybe. Ooh, these are some interesting abilities, man.
Just choose to grab Divine Storm instead, and the cooldown of Crusader Strike was brought up from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. Just
Aw, man, come on. Like, from what I understand, Ret Paladin in Classic Era already doesn't really have many buttons to press. It kind of sucks that they brought it up to 6 seconds. Like, I get it to a degree, but at the same time, man, I'm like, come on, man. 6 seconds? I guess what do? You Crusader Strike, you Judgment, maybe a Divine Storm if you have enough targets, maybe an Exorcism, but that's going to be on cooldown. So it seems like you have 2 buttons to press. Is this how it's going to be? You have your Judgment and your Crusader Strike on a 6-second cooldown. You're not going to really have too many buttons to press, it looks like. It seems like you're still mostly going to be just auto-attacking.
Just making it a little bit longer for you to be able to use that ability again.
iPhone 15 in a mouse case.
I love ads.
And as always, Paladins still come with blessings, some of the most powerful buffs in the entire game. Salvation alone is one of the reasons why most guilds actually go Alliance.
Can
Those
we
things
increase
combined with
the,
their ability to bubble
buff,
themselves and anyone
time,
else in their
please?
party to instantly save their lives or instantly drop a full heal into the tank makes Paladins an absolutely top-class pick for all of Season of Discovery. And as powerful and essential as Paladins are to the Alliance, the Horde received a lot of buffs to their unique class, the Shaman. Shamans were the most sought-after healer in Classic because of their ability to heal multiple targets, and of course, because they brought Windfury Totem with them, which is now kind of shared with another class, but we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, the Druid, right?
Continue to shine with new abilities that increase both
but
their
only feral
healing, as well as some single target healing runes that put them on par with Paladins at keeping tanks alive. Shamans can also finally play the beloved enhanced specialization and not get kicked out of the raids. Although Reddit might be convincing you that they are completely missing out on the two-handed enhanced build.
Yeah, I keep hearing about that.
One-shot people in PvP. The
Here people are really upset with that.
Will turn them to incredibly powerful and sustained damage dealers. They also come with runes that can help deal with any sort of mana issues they might have experienced beforehand. And not only that, but Shamans can also become tanks now in Season of Mastery, and they might even be the strongest AoE tanks in the entire game. Throw on a shield and receive
over a Paladin.
Block a physical attack.
That'd be insane.
Tanks are incredibly powerful for tanking a ton of mobs at one time, just like Paladins are for Alliance. They have a Frontal Cone of Cold ability that's currently uncapped on how many targets it can hit, and it generates a huge amount of threat. And they finally have a single target taunt, and in my opinion, they're one of the most fun tanks to play. That's just from my experience playing them in the BFB raid. Lastly, Shamans can also become a ranged caster that pumps with runes like Mana Burst and Overload. Shamans can not only one-shot people in PvP, but they will be continuously pumping in PvE as well. The only drawback in Phase 1 is that Shamans don't yet have Chain Lightning at level 5. And on the topic of hybrid classes, let's talk about Druids. A lot of work has been put in to make sure that all 4 Druid specs are completely viable. And I say 4 because Druids can also now differentiate between tanking and feral DPS.
Really?
Melee in Classic is going to absolutely fight over whoever gets the feral Druid in their group. And that's because Druids now bring a new and improved Windfury called Wild Strikes. That's right, we now have Windfury for Alliance, and this.
I still think it kind of sucks that it's feral class or feral specs only. That still bugs me.
Is even a better Wind Fury for Horde. That's because Wild Strikes does not take up a weapon enhancement slot, meaning that rogues and warriors or anyone else can also use sharpening stones or poisons and still benefit from getting those huge Wind Fury procs. Feral DPS will get Savage Roar, a new finishing move that gives the kitty a raw 30% extra damage. This combined with Mangle will make Feral Druid DPS extremely sought after.
Kind of makes me want to a degree.
As tanks, Feral Druids get a lot more survivability with Survival of the Fittest, but they can also bring that Wind Fury buff if they need to. Feral Druids finally get an interrupt, and they have more threat generation than ever before with the new ability Lacerate. And Boom Chickens are no longer a meme spec. Balanced Druids get Sunfire and Star Surge as new spells that round out their arsenal, but they also completely forego any sort of mana issues because they can get a rune that makes their Wrath spell completely free to use.
Alright, it says it's a proc chance though. So reduces the mana cost of Wrath by 100%, and each time you deal damage with Wrath, you have a 12% chance of your next cast of Healing Touch within 15 seconds to be instant. Oh, okay, so that's what they mean. So does that mean that this is like always active? Because if this is always active, that's awesome, because at that point, at least if I understand how Boomkins work in Classic Era, which probably isn't accurate. So it seems like you're going to be applying the 2 dots, Moonfire, Sunfire, and then spamming a lot of Wrath and just shooting out Star Surge. It seems to be kind of what you're going to be doing, maybe? I assume they get like Starfire and some other stuff. I don't know. I guess I had never really looked into it in Classic Era because it just seemed pointless. But this would be really cool.
Cast. This means while leveling, you will literally never have to stop to drink. As for healers in Classic, Druids originally weren't even able to use most of their abilities. That's because of the way that buff cap worked. If you don't know what that is, essentially you could only have up to 32 buffs on you at one time, and Druid heals would also count as a buff themselves. So if you accidentally threw a rejuve on your main tank, you might have actually pushed off their most important world buff. This is no longer the case, and Druids can finally use all of their abilities. Not only that, but they finally get some new abilities as well. Runes like Wild Growth will make...
Alright, let's look at Life Bloom. Okay, so it looks like it's basically the Wrath version. 3 stacks, Wild Growth. Heals all of target party members. Applied quickly at first, slows down. Okay, that'd be really great.
Make Druids one of the most powerful raid-wide healing classes in the entire game. And if you're ever anticipating a lot of damage to go out, the Druid can perfectly prepare for all of that and have everyone healed up right after. Hunters are the last remaining pure DPS class in all of Season of Discovery, with multiple playstyles from pet builds
so the
to
runes
ranged
get
snipers,
rogues
and
tanking,
even
yada,
a fully
yada.
melee
Okay.
hunter. That's right, melee hunters are actually a thing in this game, and Thunder Fury might genuinely now be a hunter weapon. It's crucial to mention
That's
that
weird
hunters
to
can
think
now
of.
bring the Blessing of Kings buff over to the Horde side with Aspect of the Lion. This increases everybody's
Kinda
stats
weird.
by 10% and
I
gives
get
the
it.
hunter himself an extra 10% to that bonus. This will be absolutely essential if you are the only hunter in a group. Although the melee build might not be fully fleshed out in Phase 1
Yeah,
of
the
Season of
melee
Discovery, you get
build
the
seems
new
a bit
ability
weird.
Flanking Strike, where you and your pet both hit for 100% weapon damage, and it also buffs your Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite abilities. Melee hunters also get an incredible cleave ability that is quite literally one of the only
melee
untapped
hunters get
cleave
their
abilities
pet, though?
in the entire game. So
That'd
if
be
your
kinda
tank
neat.
pulls the entire dungeon at one time, it looks like there's no damage fall off of you hitting every single target all at once. Range hunters can go with the Lone Wolf talent to get rid of their pet and increase all of their damage by 25%.
I thought they
Pairing
nerfed
this
that.
with the Sniper training talent that gives all
I
of your
feel like they
abilities an
nerfed
extra
some of those.
30%
Yeah,
damage.
there we go. Yeah, they nerfed it by 10, and holy shit, they nerfed that by... Holy fuck. Oh, wow. They nerfed that by 66%. That's insane, man. What the fuck?
Chance makes hunters an absolute
Oh my
force to
God.
be reckoned with. Hunters can also
That's
choose a
insane.
new ranged ability between Explosive Shot or Chimera Shot. Although Explosive Shot itself will share a CD with Aim Shot and Arcane Shot, I go much further into the hunter
Interesting.
builds and optimization in my hunter guide on the channel. Hunter
Kinda
pet build
sucks.
will give you an actual tank with your pet, making their taunt
Really?
significantly more effective, basically not being used.
Pet damage and health are increased. Focus generation by 80. In addition, your pet ground also taunts the target to attack it for 3 seconds. It almost makes me wonder, like, depending on how that worked, how that would work out, if, like, I'm kind of surprised that they just stopped at that and didn't try to make hunters a tank spec with their pet. Like, considering they're already giving tank to warlock and rogue, I'm just surprised they stopped here for hunters.
Useless, because taunt beforehand was pretty useless. You can also learn Kill Command to buff your pet's damage even further, and these runes will make Hunter one of the most powerful leveling classes in the entire game. And in the open world PvP of Ashenvale or Warsong Gulch, Hunters can just stand back at range and have the leeway to absolutely delete everyone in front of them, which is going to make them one of my favorite classes in Season of Discovery. Rogues have...
So you just as a feral druid or a rogue, right? You just sneak up, stun them, and delete them. So could be pretty easy.
Always been one of the best classes for both PvP and PvE in Classic World of Warcraft, and this remains true in Season of Discovery. Just for PvP alone, rogues are getting a ranged kidney shot and a ranged slow ability that's reminiscent of Outlaw Rogues if you've ever played.
Yeah, no, that's
This solves
pretty
one of the
crazy.
rogues' biggest issues when fighting other players, and that was if someone ever got out of range of you, rogues turned from the predator to the prey. There was very little to do to close the gap, and that issue has been completely solved with these abilities. As for
That's
PvE,
really cool.
rogues have always been able to choose between daggers and swords as how they want to deal incredible damage. The strongest single rune that rogues have seen so far is one that reduces the energy of their backstab and ambush abilities by a whopping 20 energy. That rune itself is one of the strongest runes we've seen this entire season. They also get a new double dagger playstyle with Mutilate. This hits with both of your daggers at the same time and pairs with the Deadly Brew and Envenom runes to jump up the rogue's damage. Sword and Mace rogues can use both of those runes as well and gain the new hard-hitting ability called Saber Slash. But rogues aren't pigeonholed to just being a DPS class anymore. Rogue tanks were used in Hardcore Classic to dodge all of the attacks on bosses like Resuvius or Patchwork in Naxxramas. And that playstyle is exactly translated to the new rogue tanking in Season of Discovery. Like the other tanks, rogues get their very own taunt. But unlike
Just
other
a
tanks,
flesh wound.
rogues
I love
prefer
that.
to actually not be hit at all. Instead,
I wonder
all
if
the
that's like a
rogues'
reference
abilities
to
increase their avoidance,
what was
with
it?
things like parry and dodge getting so
Princess
strong
Bride,
even
right?
that at level 60 and the current runes in the game right now, you can hit over 100%
That sounds
avoidance
right.
with all world buffs. This means that quite literally rogue tanks would never get hit by any of the boss's melee swings and only take damage from things like magical spells. The biggest flaws rogues have currently is their lack of AoE abilities. They are a purely single target class, especially at level
they don't give
25,
us Fan of
but I would
Knives?
wager that Blizzard intends to change that as we learn new spells moving towards max.
Because I could see Fan of
With that in
Knives.
mind, rogues are a very strong pick, especially if you want to do both PvP and PvE. By now, you've probably heard that warlocks can turn
Damn,
into
I'm feeling
giant
tired, man.
demon tanks in Season of Discovery. Warlocks as a class are probably getting the biggest changes in this season, and not only aesthetically. While Warlocks in Original Classic only had 1 or 2 abilities to use, and even in TBC, they just
Shadowbolt.
Shadowbolt, that is no longer the case. Warlocks have the option of going with a fire damage build, a damage over time build with Affliction, or they can become demons themselves and be one of the most powerful AoE tanks in the game. The Metamorphosis rune alone completely changes the class.
Yeah, let's look at this. So you get increased armor, reduces crit, increases threat, increases mana, gain from life tap. Holy shit. Obviously transforms some of the abilities. Cleave, a curse, now a taunt. Oh, you get a charge and a howl. That is pretty neat.
This gives them 500% more armor and
I still think they should have like a way to make it into a DPS spec too. That would be pretty cool.
instant cast Searing Pain, a melee taunt, a melee cleave, and it turns their drain life into a more powerful siphon life. This one rune will also make warlocks almost impossible to kill in any PvP situation. So if you thought Snuts was already a monster at 1v1s before, just wait until he gets his hands on something like this. Warlocks finally have solid AoE with the new Shadowbolt Volley rune. Then they can swap this out on boss fights for the huge damage of Chaos Bolt or the damage over time boost.
Yes, I am really excited about Chaos Bolt.
In Lake of Fire, turn Warlocks from Shadowbolt spamming soggy pancakes to Giga Chad DPS pumping waffles. The dot spec of Affliction will most likely receive more runes in the future, allowing the class to truly ramp up their damage. But either way, Warlocks in Classic are finally looking as strong as they've always claimed to be.
See, dude, just wait until the Warlocks get their blood Mudvayne. Wait until they get to AQ and they get their 2.5. Just wait until they get to Nax, man. Once they have that Nax skill.
The Priest runes focus on increasing their healing and making the Shadow spec more viable. Shadow Priest
Hell
can
yeah.
get Mind Seer, which is an extremely powerful AoE ability
Nice.
if the raid pulls packs large enough. One of the coolest new abilities is called Homunculi. This splits the
I know I just ranted about this, but God, come on, man. Why the melee? Why?
Priest's soul into 3 miniature copies of itself, and they all start attacking the target, putting up some of the game's most powerful debuffs, including reducing the target's attack power, attack speed, and armor. And if these stack with things like Sunder Armor, this is going to be one of the most powerful runes in the entire game. Priest can also finally grab Shadow Word Death, and Healing
Nice.
Priest gets some of the class's most iconic spells, like Penance, Prayer of
Very
Vengeance,
nice.
and Circle of Healing. While Priest may struggle with mana a bit at the lower levels, there's no denying that both Healing and Shadow Priest are getting huge buffs as we move throughout this season. And mages remain the master of the elements, whether it be fire, frost, or arcane. But not only that, but mages
Okay.
are now actually gonna be healers
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Although
yeah.
mage healing has already received nerfs before the game even comes out,
Damn.
mages now have 3
Are they-
unique
is it
healing
gonna be
abilities that
worth
can
it
allow
then?
them to do a ton of damage while also keeping everybody in the party or raid alive. Fire mages are getting huge abilities with things like Living Bomb and Living Flame, and arcane mages are moving away from consistently casting Frostbolt to using things like Arcane Blast
That would
and
be
Arcane
nice.
Surge. And although Frostbolt might no longer be the
Okay.
meta ability within PvE situations, Frost mages get a ton more ways to deal out extra
Oh, like
damage,
Ice
with
Lance,
abilities
right?
like Ice Lance pairing with things like Fingers of Frost, making them
Very
absolute
nice.
powerhouses in PvP that can delete people in seconds. Each and every class is going to be viable and is getting support from new runes in Season of Discovery. So you don't have to pick any specific class if you want to be invited to a raid anymore. Just choose
Okay.
whichever you like, whichever you think is going to be most fun, and whichever playstyles appeal to you the most. If you like
That's
this
kinda
video
what I'm
and want
looking
more
for,
guides that go
honestly.
in depth on any of the classes, especially any of the DPS classes, showing you what the new talents are, what the best runes are, what your best
Okay.
gearing is, and what your new rotations will be, currently at level 25, as well as updated ones when we get to the higher levels, then make sure to check those out on my page or subscribe for the future ones.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna give this guy a like and a subscribe because that definitely seems interesting to me. I don't know if I'll go and look at those or if I'll just figure it out on my own, but that's definitely pretty interesting. I still haven't really narrowed down anything. If anything, it kind of makes me want to move Warlock back up to classes. Oh man, this is difficult right now, honestly. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like my class stuff hasn't gotten any better for me. All right, maybe Scotty's marathon video here, like an hour and 38. Maybe this will help shed some light.
When it comes to a class picking guide, you really should just pick the class that resonates with you the most. That could be because of class.
You see, that's the rough part. Like, it's kind of like me trying to choose like a favorite movie. Like, I never can. Like, I get a selection of things, kind of like what I've done here. Like, I get a selection of some of these classes, and then it's just really hard committing to just one. Obviously, I'm still leaning towards this, but like, I love being a boomkin. Resto's also fun. Shadow Priest, I've enjoyed too. Warlock, I really like Chaos Bolt and stuff like that. Mage, having more options, seems really cool. If they give us Titan's Grip, you know, I'd also want to do that. So like, it's a very difficult to narrow it down. So it's rough.
Class fantasy or the role that you want to fill. Don't look at tier list videos telling you which class is going to be the best because ultimately no one knows. We're working with
Exactly.
a very small portion of a much larger game. With level 25 being the cap in Season of Discovery, what is really powerful now could be incredibly weak at max level. So the best way to decide what class you want to play right now is think about what role you want to fill in raids or even in dungeons. Listen to all the information in this video so you know what each class is looking like it's going to shape up to be, and then make a decision. Over the last...
Alright, looks like we're about to wrap up the intro, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through, I'm going to hit up Druid, Paladin, and Priest, I think is what I'm going to do, honestly. Because those are the ones I'm between.
Last 2 weeks, I've covered every
But based off his past videos, I highly encourage checking out the video here that he's got, the Seasons of Discovery in-depth class picking guide from Scotty J. Like he's got some really good stuff.
class in their own individual videos. Since those videos have been posted, there's been updates from Blizzard regarding slight changes to abilities or coefficients, and we just have a much better understanding from doing deep dives on podcasts and things like that. So this video will be actually a lot more accurate than all the individual videos were. So sit back, relax, and strap yourself in for quite a long one. First up, the
All right, we're gonna scoot on over to whatever they have first here. What do we got? What do we got? Ooh. All right, looks like we're starting with Priest, guys. Oh. When this ad breaks, ends.
Werther's Original Caramels. Discover the original fall flavor.
Oh my God.
10 years
Oh,
ago, we
okay,
started
okay,
on Tuck It
cool.
Out of My
We're almost done.
And today we have more than 80 stores worldwide.
those ranged
Awesome.
abilities, range stuns, teleports to the target. Like, it's going to be pretty insane.
The Wallbot DIY
Oh
tool
my
is the
God,
most
what is
advanced
this?
stud finder on the market.
Stop
And
with
if
the
you're looking for
ads.
Christmas gift ideas,
The Priest.
Okay, here we
The
go, guys.
staple healer on any vanilla server that everyone laughs at if they're not a dwarf. And why is that? Fear Ward. While in later expansions every priest has Fear Ward and it's used
There we go.
regularly, in vanilla it's only dwarves that get it. Season of Discovery looks likely to change that though, as in a recent interview with the devs they said there will be discoveries in the form of shrines and religions which could
Oh,
allow
shit.
priests to swap their racial ability. Now this would be
Whoa.
a game changer, because if you can be something like a human
shit.
priest where you
Sorry.
benefit from the extra spirit but also pick up Fear Ward at later levels, you're
Yeah, no, that would be interesting, because I didn't even think about like min-maxing hard. Like obviously humans get paladin, you can't really choose different class. Priests, you know, was it humans, night elves, and dwarfs? Yeah, I mean it's right there on the screen. My brain didn't see that. Speaking of, hold on, let's go down here a bit. So yeah, so you got humans, dwarves, night elves, undead, and trolls, like for the horde there. But yeah, I didn't even think about Fear Ward or anything like that. So that's damn. Obviously, Druid. I didn't have to worry about Druid because Druid is night elf specific. I didn't even think about racials or trying to min max in that way. Holy shit. Honestly, I probably won't either, just because I'll want to play whichever race I want to. Like it'll probably either, like, obviously for paladin it'll have to be human, for druid it'd have to be night elf. For a priest though, I'd probably be torn between human and night elf, honestly. Yeah, anyways.
You're going to be laughing.
Starting with the gloves, because I do believe that this is probably going to be one of the first ones you pick up. Circle of Healing is going to be the first option, and to be fair, we're probably all familiar with that spell. Circle of Healing has actually had its range increase massively. Originally
Really?
at BlizzCon, it would heal all of the target players' party members within 15 yards of the target. Now
Holy
that's been
shit,
put up to
it
40
over
yards.
doubled.
Not only that, it's even got
Damn.
a better healing coefficient now, but the downside is the cost has gone from 21% base mana up to 28% base mana. But still,
Well,
for you healers,
That doesn't feel like that's not too bad. It's only a few percent up, and you get so much more value for that, right? That seems like a really good spell, and it's a 6-second cooldown. That seems pretty good.
Circle of Healing is going to be absolutely amazing, and it's going to be
Exactly.
fun to use in both dungeons and raids. Next up for Shadow Priest, or just anyone wanting to do some damage really, we've got Mind Seer, which causes an explosion of shadow magic around the enemy target. It does
Yes.
shadow damage every
Give
1
us
second
AoE.
for 5 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards around the target. Now the only one thing that I think is a bit of a shame here is that we got the poor man's version of Mind
Oh.
Seer. So we've got the
Oh, did
version
we?
that you'd have in Wrath of the Lich King, where it has to be targeted on an enemy. So that enemy that you're targeting will take no damage from Mind Seer, just all the
yeah.
enemies around it.
That
What would have been
sucks.
nice to see is the Cataclysm version, where actually you can cast it on a friendly target. So if a tank runs in, you could cast it on
Oh,
the tank. And it's going to
shit.
hit
That
every
would
mob
be
equally.
awesome.
Not a big deal, just a minor little complaint. If your favourite spec
Yeah,
is
no,
a Shadow
that
Priest
does
and
suck.
you want to play Season of Discovery, you're going to have an AoE now, which still is absolutely amazing. Next up, again, not an unfamiliar spell, but Penance. Launches a
Penance,
volley
I
of
love
holy
that.
light at a target, causing holy damage to an enemy or healing to an ally. instantly and every 1 second for 2 seconds. It is actually one of my favourite
This is
looking
making me
spells
wanna
that
play
a priest has
Priest.
ever had. It does look
Damn
like
it.
it's going to be on a 12-second cooldown, and it's got a 16% base mana cost. So again, while in Wrath you want to just use this literally on cooldown, you've
Yeah.
also got a lot of intellect to go along with it to enable you to use it on cooldown. I think you're going to have to use this quite intelligently.
Yeah, I agree. We're not gonna have like the massive inflated mana pools and even health pools that you would have in Wrath Classic. Like I think we're gonna have. I mean, we're gonna have Classic era size mana pools and shit. So we're gonna have to be very very picky and stuff, which makes sense honestly. But it is kind of disappointing that you won't be able to spam like some of like the spells you really like.
And the final option is Shadow Word Death, and this is the point where I'm going to talk about my
This is
concern.
just-
So first,
Isn't Shadow Word Death just basically like our crap? What is the warriors execute, right? Isn't it just like our execute? The target, if the target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, the caster takes damage equal to. Oh, what the fuck? Shadow Word to the target. If the target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, the caster takes damage equal to the damage inflicted upon the target. Okay, maybe not. But that also hurts.
and the final option is Shadow Word Death, and this is the point where I'm going to talk about my concern. So firstly, Shadow Word Death is a word of dark binding that inflicts shadow damage to the target. If a target is not killed by Shadow Word Death, the caster takes damage equal to the damage inflicted upon the target. So I'm guessing if you've played any version of World of Warcraft that isn't vanilla and you've played a Shadow Priest, you'll be familiar with what Shadow Word Death is. But just onto my concern while we're on this ability. As we
Clearly I
work
haven't
through
done
all of
enough
these rooms,
Shadow
be it
Priest.
gloves, legs, or chest, none of them seem to have anything that's going to aid a Shadow Priest's mana regen. Now, we know there's things
Yeah,
like Seal
wait.
of the Martyrdom, which a Paladin may be using, which
Yeah,
does
that's
grant mana
true.
to the party. But the Shadow
I thought we got like a little buddy like that regens mana that like is a cooldown. Is that not in Classic era? Is that like a TVC or Wrath spell that got introduced then?
Priest hasn't got anything to actually be sort of self-sufficient. The reason I
Damn.
wanted to talk about this when it comes to Shadow Word Death is what they could have done is actually incorporated a talent from Cataclysm called Masochism. Now, what Masochism
Oh.
actually does is gives you mana when you deal damage to yourself with Shadow Word
Oh,
Death.
dude,
so
that
whilst
would've
it's
been
sort of meant to be an
cool.
execute ability, you could also use it to get mana back. That is just a
Dude,
thought. They're probably not
that'd
going to
be
change it because
cool.
we're so close to
Yeah,
release
no,
now.
that's true.
I think Agrand or Blizz in general, if you're watching,
Maybe they're gonna save more of like the self-sufficient mana regen for like the 40, 50, 60 brackets. Because yeah, it's a good point. Like you need mana regen. Like you can't always count on other classes to give you that. Like you can't count on paladins to use the seal, right? You can't count on innervate from druids or anything of like that. So hopefully they add something like that.
I think priests might need a little bit of help on the old mana side. But moving on to the chest, first up we've got Serendipity, where healing with Flash Heal reduces the cast time of your next Lesser Heal, Greater Heal, or Prayer of Healing by 20%.
That'd be
For
great.
20 seconds. And this stacks 3 times. Now it's interesting
Jesus.
because what's been changed with Serendipity here in comparison to later expansions is they've also added Lesser Heal and Heal into the mix. Ordinarily, it's just Greater Heal and Prayer of Healing. Now, on the basis
Okay.
that it looks like it's only rune abilities that are going to have a base mana cost where you need to be careful when you're using them, the existing spells as of this moment in time when you're looking on Wowhead all have an actual mana cost, meaning
Okay.
you can downrank. Don't get me wrong, they could go along the lines of making everything a base mana cost by the time it actually launches, but as it looks at the moment, you could downrank Flash Heal as an example. So you could
Okay.
pump out really quick, fast rank 1 Flash Heals for
That'd be
minimal
cool.
mana, but then directly afterwards pump out a really fast Prayer of Healing. Or if
Oh,
the
dude,
tank was
that'd
in
be
trouble,
great.
obviously it would be a Greater Heal. But you could try and be really mana efficient by using
Dude, that'd be
low
awesome.
rank Flash Heals to then give you a quicker, higher ranked heal or higher ranked lesser heal, whatever way round, just to keep a constant stream of healing on the tank. Next up we've got Strength of Soul. Now Strength of Soul was actually a talent that was added in Cataclysm where
Wait,
your
this
lesser
is-
heal
This is the. Oh yeah. Because this reduces the shield debuff, right?
heal, greater heal, and flash heal reduce the remaining duration of the weakened soul effect on the target that
Yes,
you've healed.
yes,
So as an
okay.
example, the point of this would be to put a shield on the tank. You would then
Yeah.
spam some heals or lesser heals into it.
So this makes the shield actually worth using, right? Because I think in Classic era the shield is kind of meh.
To get rid of that weakened soul effect, and as soon as the shield drops, boom, you're renewing it with another one. The interesting
Nice.
thing that they've done with Strength of Soul, which only works if you've got this rune, the target of the power word shield will gain rage from taking damage despite the damage being absorbed, which is great. But the other
Dude, that's
interesting part
awesome.
for Paladins is when you've got Righteous Fury on, it will trigger from direct damage absorbed by your power word shield as if it was a heal. So actually, having a
that's
bubble on you is just
awesome.
going to increase your threat. There's not really much to say there. I don't see this being that powerful. I mean,
I feel like
if I
it
was
sounds
healing,
awesome,
I would prefer
man.
Serendipity. But it's nice that it's there as an option.
Shit! Yeah, no, that's fair because these are all tied to that slot again, right? Damn. Okay, yeah, that's rough. So I feel like Strength of the Soul, right, would be the selection you choose if you're trying to be a disc priest, right? Because I don't feel like Holy really uses the power word shield all that often, right? And then obviously the Twisted Faith seems to be more of that's a shadow thing, right? So this feels like Holy, disc, and shadow selections.
Next up, you've got Twisted Faith. Now, Twisted Faith is just basically the same as the Wrath of the Lich King talent, but minus the extra spell damage from Spirit. In Wrath of the Lich King, it
that
does give
sucks.
spell damage based on Spirit, but here it is just a flat 20% extra damage.
So using Scotty's own words here, right? So we got the poor man's version of Twisted Faith, right?
With your
Damn.
Mind Flay and
Okay.
Mind Blast, the target's affected by your Shadow Word Pain. Now, on the basis, Mind Flay and Mind Blast are going to be your two most damaging spells,
Yeah.
giving them both 20%
Oh,
extra
there we
damage.
go. There we go. That's what I meant to say earlier. The homunculi we can get instead of beating the fuck out of them with melee weapons, right? Because you're not doing that as a shadow priest. You're using dots, you're using mind flay and stuff like that, mind blast, right? You're doing shadows, psychic damage to the people, right? What would have been cooler is if the homunculi were just casting mind flay. That feels like a very shadow priest thing to do versus just smacking on them with fucking maces and axes and shit. Like, what the fuck? Astro, go home. Yeah, hopefully that'll be the last time I rant on this, but it probably won't.
Damage is kind of a no-brainer, even when we look at the very last rune, which we haven't covered yet, but I think Twisted Faith is going to be almost just a must-have as a Shadow Priest,
Yeah,
as
I
long as
agree.
you're not Ohm. But the last one is Void Plague, which
God
affects
damn
the
it.
target with a disease that causes X amount of shadow damage over 18 seconds. Now, you're probably
yeah.
thinking, well, this is basically just Devouring Plague. Well, yes and no. Devouring Plague obviously does exist in the game, even though it's only for undead
Undead priest, of course.
priests. Like I said earlier, later on in the phase or even in a future phase, you might be able to get Devouring Plague
Oh,
no
that's
matter
right.
what race
That's right.
priest you are. And
It's
even though
like the whole
Devouring Plague's on a
shrine thing that
3-minute
he was talking
cooldown,
about.
how amazing would it be having Shadow Word Pain up, Devouring Plague, and Void Plague? That's just going to be a nasty amount of dot damage, which you can then just top off with some Mind Blast and Mind Flays, and things are probably just going to die. I think overall the choice of
point.
chest
And then you'll be
runes is pretty basic
because we don't
depending on
have
what
mono
spec you're
regen.
playing. Strength of Soul, I'm sure, will have a place, but I think most healers would just naturally run Serendipity.
Yeah,
And I think
I
fight
agree with that.
dependent, Twisted Faith and Void Plague can be mixed in and out. And the reason I say fight dependent is Void Plague could be used on heavy movement fights, whereas Twisted Faith would be used on fights where
Oh,
you don't
that's
need
a
to
fair
move
point,
as much.
'cause
Because
you won't-
remember, if
yeah,
you're putting Void
that
Plague up
makes
and then you've got to
sense.
move, you're getting the full benefit of that rune. If you're having to move when you're using Twisted Faith, well, you're just losing damage. And then
Yeah,
finally,
yeah,
bringing
that's
us
fair.
to the leg runes. I'm going to leave Homunculi till last just because that is really interesting. So let's start.
All right, guys. I gotta take a quick bio break. I will be right back. Let's see what this is.
Start with Shared Pain. So Shared Pain basically allows your Shadow Word Pain to afflict up to 2 additional nearby targets within 15 yards. Pretty
That seems
basic.
useful.
You put Shadow Word Pain on a target, and if there is any other targets nearby, they're also going to get Shadow Word Pain on them up to a max.
That's pretty nice because that reduces how many you have to tab through, right, to cast that. It's kind of a nice quality of life.
Of 2 extra targets. Now this is great, but it depends on how hard some of this stuff's going to be. So this could be an absolute nightmare if it hits CC targets. So if a mage has got a target polymorph
that's
because
true.
it
That would
heals
suck
and you don't want to
horribly.
deal with it until later on in the fight, and you've got Shadow Priest using their Shadow Word Pain and then it's putting it on the sheet,
Oh god,
that'd be a nightmare. As long as these things can't hit targets that are in CC, then there's no issue. And looking at the way all these classes look like they're going to play, everyone's getting...
Well, theoretically, it would be okay, right? Because it's within 15 yards. So if the mage CC, polymorphs somebody, and if the tank can move the group away from it, then the mage, then the priest can still use that and dot it, right?
In AoE, everyone's getting cleave. There's probably not going to be that much CC going on anyway.
Yeah,
but on
that's
a
a good point.
3-target cleave boss, Shared Pain is going to be absolutely amazing, as is it going to be amazing in dungeons. Next up, we've got Prayer of Mending, another old familiar spell, where it places a spell on the target that heals them for X amount of healing the next time they take damage or receive healing. When the heal occurs, Prayer of Mending jumps to a party or raid member within 20 yards. And this jumps up to 5 times and lasts 30 seconds after each jump. This spell
That
can
is
only be
nice.
placed on 1 target at a time. If you're a real die-hard priest, did you notice the one thing that makes this absolutely amazing? Assuming it goes live like this, it has been changed to be the next time they take damage or receive healing. So
Oh,
currently,
shit.
the really irritating thing about Prayer of Mending
That
is
would
when
be
it
great.
jumps to someone and
Damn.
they take no damage. So you have no control over being able to force that Prayer of Mending off of
But
them.
now you can.
You need
That's
to just put a
fucking
new Prayer
awesome.
of Mending out. Now, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, this spell costs 15% base mana, so you want to make sure this does jump 5 times. So the fact that if it jumps to a range, let's say it jumps to your mage and your mage is taking no damage, you can quickly throw a lesser heal or a really cheap heal onto them to force that Prayer of Mending to jump again. Now that's huge, and I truly believe that
really
is probably Blizzard really looking ahead and thinking, some of these healing spells are really good, but you're not going to be able to use them on cooldown like you would use them on cooldown in Wrath of the Lich King or in Cataclysm or in whatever. And I reckon they've added that little receive healing in there just to compensate for that. And just in case you're interested, I even checked the retail version of Prayer of Mending to
Doesn't
see if
have
it does
that.
the same thing, and
Right.
it doesn't. In fact, I checked through every patch change that Prayer of Mending has ever seen and can't see anything where this has actually been a change in the past. So this is
That's
completely
insane.
unique to Season of Discovery, assuming it goes live how it reads. Next up, a big complaint from me. Me complain? I know, never. Power Word Barrier. This is an absolutely amazing ability. It summons a holy barrier to protect all party members at the target location for 10 seconds, which reduces all damage taken
Okay. I'm wondering what the issue
by
is.
25% and preventing damage from delaying spellcasting. Now, not only does this ability look amazing, it is an incredibly powerful raid cooldown, and it's one that you want to feel powerful using. Now, my complaint with it is
Is it a
how it
3-minute
reads.
cooldown?
It reads as protecting party members at the location. Now, you probably think,
Oh shit! Yeah, that I agree. That sucks because wherever you cast it, you can't guarantee that they're your party members, right? So if your party members and yourself are in a safe distance, and the tank, whoever's getting hit like that, you can cast it over there, but it ain't gonna do shit. That does suck. I get that. Yeah, fuck.
thinking, well, that probably means raid as well. Going back to Prayer of Mending, that actually reads as party or raid members, and there's loads of other abilities that read as party or raid. This sounds like it's party only. Now,
Yeah,
my
that
complaint
sucks.
about it is this should be raid wide, because there's a
It
big
should,
bubble that everybody
100%.
can stand in, and they know they're going to take reduced damage. This could get really confusing if a priest
Yeah,
puts
100%.
it down and you think, you're going to go and stand in it and you're going to take reduced damage, but it's actually only 5 people, a single party out of, let's say,
Yeah.
10 of you if you're doing
Yeah,
BFD,
yeah, yeah.
that are going to actually benefit from it. So this could force people to stack that don't really need to be stacked. They're wasting time running over to the barrier when they're not actually in the same party as the priest.
Yeah.
So unless this is trying to encourage having...
Well, theoretically, This could be fine with communication, right, from the raid, but it does suck, and it should be raid wide.
Multiple priests, in which case it's such a powerful raid cooldown that you'd almost want one priest in each group,
Yeah, so
or
you need
one
8.
priest in most groups to be able to power barrier their
Yeah.
entire group. I don't know. I just feel like it should be raid wide. Let me know
Yeah,
what you think in the
100%.
comments, because I
100%
think
raid
that's going to
wide.
be a really clunky one to have as party only when it's visible to everyone. And then
Yeah.
finally, the one that I wanted to finish on because it's a brand new ability. While we've seen ones like it, kind of, we've not seen them work quite in this way. What this ability does is it breaks off splinters of your soul to animate
That is
3
pretty-
miniature
pretty
copies
neat.
of yourself that attempt to attack your current target with
Should
a
be
mace,
Mind Flay.
sword, and axe, reducing the attack
Mind
speed,
Flay.
attack power, and armor, respectively, of any target they hit. I'm really intrigued to see how this works, because reducing attack speed would be Thunderclap, reducing attack power would be, let's say, Demo Roar,
That's
and armor
fair.
would, of course, be Sunder Armor. Now,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
quite a long cooldown, because it's on a 2-minute cooldown, so every 2 minutes you're going to be able to use this, but if you've already got a
So it kind of makes you it's one of those things where you want to probably stack it with like Lust or whatever. But does the Alliance get a Lust equivalent on Classic Era? Because we don't get Shamans till TBC. Yeah, so regardless, you'd want to snapshot this with all the cooldowns everybody'd use to kind of burn, right?
warrior in the group keeping up his Sunders, keeping up his Thunderclap, and his Demo Shout, then you're only really benefiting from the damage that the 3 little splinters are doing, which we don't know what the damage is going to look like yet.
Yeah.
So what I'm actually hoping is this is a raid-wide damage increase. I know it's
That would be
only really
great.
going to affect the melee, because it's going to further reduce the armor of the bosses, but it's also going to be used as a defensive cooldown, because your tanks are not going to be getting slapped as hard or as fast, but
That's
it would
true.
rely on its stacking with existing debuffs. So I'm hoping that thought
Yeah, and in that case, not only could this be used to increase damage, this could also theoretically be used during an oh shit moment, right? Where you need to reduce damage. That'd be pretty cool.
has been taken by Blizzard, and it's basically a weaker version of Demo Shout, Thunderclap, and Sunder Armor. So it's not going to be as powerful as the ones that the Warrior does, but it will stack with them. And outside of my concerns about mana for Shadow Priests, I think they're looking in a really good place. And there's been sensible changes to these new abilities that have been added, such as the Prayer Mending change, I think is going to get Priest off to a really good start.
So my wife got me this weird new kitchen knife as a Christmas gift. God, I love her.
The Paladin. So the rune slots that are going to...
Okay, so that's making me think Holy Shadow if I do a Priest. Definitely seems interesting. But now we're going to dive into Paladin. Maybe I'll learn something I didn't know.
be available at level 25
Hopefully.
are going to be for chest, legs, and gloves. Up until
Okay.
25, you can get 4 for the chest as a paladin. First one's going to be
Ugh.
Seal of Martyrdom. Seal of the
That's
Martyrdom's
really cool.
changed since the state it was in during BlizzCon, because now it's actually only single target. Before it was hitting 3 targets, and you was losing health equal to 2% of the damage inflicted. Now it's only
Okay.
hitting 1 target, but you're losing health equal to 10% of the damage inflicted.
What? 10%? Holy shit. So, well, it's only every 30 seconds, right? So every 30 seconds you lose 10%. But then you'll get healed up, right? While the seal is active, your party members within 40 yards gain up to 10% of the... Wow. That's actually really cool. Because if you think about it, right? Before it was, you would hit 3 targets, right? Dealing 30%. You would take 2% of the health you lost. So you would do more damage, but you would regenerate less mana. In this case, you do more damage, or you do less damage, but you regenerate a lot more mana for your people.
Inflicted. The only good note about this really is that while the seal's active, your party members within 40 yards each gain mana now equal to 10% of the damage you take from the seal.
What
During
about us?
BlizzCon, this was actually only 2%.
I was under the impression this also helped us. Does this not help us anymore in terms of mana regen?
Keeping along the same lines as when you're actually swinging the weapon, unleashing the seal's energy will now instantly cause 70% weapon damage, but it will cause 10% of the damage to you. That seal is...
Wait. So, fills you with... Oh, shit. Okay, so when you cast it, causing each of your melee attacks to deal 30%. but you will lose 10% health from 10%. Oh, 10% of the damage inflicted. So over the course of 30 seconds, you lose 10% of whatever damage you're doing. And when you unleash the seal, you lose an immediate 10% of the damage inflicted. So you're just constantly, you're basically burning through a lot of your health theoretically, which will only then help. Damn, I was hoping this would be a good mana gain for yourself too. Damn, okay.
Is not new. Of course, it's changed a little bit. And the thing I love about this straight away is you probably noticed it lasts 30 seconds. So it's the original sort of form of seals where you're constantly refreshing them, like vanilla. So it's not like you're getting Seal of the Martyrdom and it lasts 10 minutes or it lasts 30 minutes.
I mean, I think that'd be
talking
cool.
30 seconds
But
at a
considering
time.
you
It's
lose
also great
health
at the
and what
cost
it
of
does,
you
it
needing
makes
to be
sense.
healed a little bit more because you're taking damage. You're giving everyone else mana back. The next
Yeah.
chest rune is Divine Storm, which is an instant weapon attack causing 110% of weapon
Damn.
damage up to 4 enemies within 8 yards.
I feel like if I was a DPS, right, that's rough because you could like, man, I just feel like I'd want Divine Storm if I was DPS. I feel like the martyrdom would be cool, as like some type of Shakaden, like where you're like a DPS but a healer too, like that. That would be kind of cool.
The Divine Storm heals up to 3 party or raid members, totaling 25% of the damage caused. I think we all know what Divine Storm does, so not really a lot to talk about there. It is literally just Divine Storm, but how cool is that? Horn of Lordaeron is another chest rune. The Paladin blows the Horn of Lordaeron, which increases total strength and agility of all party members within 30 yards by 17. This lasts 2 minutes and is exclusive with Blessing of Might. So Horn of Lordaeron, basically Horn of Winter, but for Paladins. Very.
That kind of sucks though because you're making it, you're stacking it with these other really cool abilities. So I feel like the Horn of Winter, right? I feel like based off those 3 things, that's rough because the seal could be really good as a tank, right? Because you're doing 30% more damage, which means you're holding aggro easier. You're helping people get mana. I feel like that's a really rough pick, right? Because I feel like ultimately it would come down to like you'd probably designate a paladin to have Horn of Winter. I'd be curious to see which one. Maybe as a holy paladin, that would be the best bet because holy paladin's not really going to use Divine Storm. And they're probably not going to use Seal of Martyrdom, right? So having a holy paladin choose Horn of Winter, I feel like is probably like the best bet, honestly.
Very cool. Aegis is another chest rune, which increases your block value by 30% and damage in melee.
They're really making you choose between, I feel like, a good amount of things there. Like I feel like they're all good in their own way, and that's crazy.
Ranged attacks.
Because clearly this is a tank thing. Oh man, that's rough.
A 10% chance to increase your chance to block by 30%. This lasts 10 seconds of 5 blocks. Effect is not cumulative with Redoubt. So what's interesting about this is obviously Redoubt is the first 5 points that you would put into the protection talent tree. If you was Retribution, this does mean that you could use this chest rune, maybe just to fill the spot of a tank in a 5-man or something, without needing to worry about respecking. You know, these runes are going to be able to be used in quite funky ways. Then we've got 5 different leg runes. First one is Divine Sacrifice, which many of us know and use very regularly as Paladins in Wrath, where 30% of all damage taken by party members within 30 yards is redirected to the Paladin for 10 seconds. Damage which reduces the Paladin below 20% health will break the effect and grant the Paladin 10% increased damage and healing done over 10 seconds. Now that's an interesting change. Actually being able to use it as not only a raid-wide defensive cooldown to reduce damage, but then you also get the benefit of getting 10% extra damage and healing from it once it breaks. Now the thing about Divine Sacrifice is it can't be used if you're under the effect of Blessing of Protection, Divine Shield or Divine Protection, and it prevents you being targeted by those abilities while it's active. So Blizzard really do want you to actually take the damage instead of being able to bubble and desack like we definitely would have used it as. The next leg rune really does make me laugh. Inspiration Exemplar. Your inspiring presence periodically dispels fear and sleep effects on nearby party
That's
members.
kind of nice.
Now, you've got to remember they've gone down the route of trying to keep it as vanilla as possible, you know, in
I'm
terms...
trying to think of legs now, because they're showing us that divine sacrifices. Oh, these are the only two on the legs, right? Right. Let's back it up a bit. Yeah, I think that's it, right? Yeah. So we have 2 legs right now. So like, I probably wouldn't take this if I was a Ret. I feel like this is clearly very, very much a tank thing. And then, where were we? This would be kind of like, so far of the 2 we've seen, I feel like be a good DPS or holy thing to take just to dispel that stuff.
Your inspiring presence period.
But it's restricted to party members. That's woof. Okay.
Dispels fear and sleep effects on nearby party members. Now you've got to remember they've gone down the route of trying to keep it as vanilla as possible, you know, in terms of lore and everything that's going on. So you have only got paladins on the Alliance and shamans on the Horde still. You basically are, as a paladin now, you can use this leg rune and become a tremor totem. If it's a fight where you don't need a tremor totem, you don't need that pulsing,
you just don't
fear
use
and
the
sleep
rune
effect to be dispelled, you don't use it. And you can
That
change
makes
your
sense.
runes at any time out of combat. So I really like that even on a fight-by-fight basis, what rune you use is going to massively affect
Jesus,
the rest of your
that's
party,
true.
or the
That's
rest
crazy.
of your group, or the
Think
rest of your raid, and you're going to do it on a fight-by-fight basis. Avengers Shield is a classic, so hurls a holy shield at the enemy, dealing 165 to 197
thing.
holy damage, dazing them, and jump into additional nearby enemies. And it affects 3 total targets. That's cool. I like it. And obviously, as somebody who's played a lot of prop paladin, it'd have been nice if it had the silence effect on it as well, which maybe we'll see at a later date. But at the moment, it is just a daze, which that's fine. But having the silence effect attached to it as well would be banging. The next leg enchant is...
Wait, is it an instant cast?
Which is enemies. In 165 to 197 holy damage,
doesn't
dazing
say.
them and jump into additional nearby enemies.
Okay, so we don't know if it's the TBC cast version or the Wrath instant.
Affects 3 total targets.
Or maybe we do already.
That's cool. I like it, and obviously, as somebody who's played a lot of prop paladin, but at the moment it is just a daze, which that's fine. But having the silence effect attached to it as well would be banging. The next leg enchant is Exorcist.
All right, so what I'm seeing here is, as a Ret, I would definitely choose Exorcist. I feel like, granted, like fight specific, but I guess as like if I was a DPS, right, you choose Exorcist. If you needed the debuffing from the sleep and the stuff, I feel like, you know, you do that for a holy, or maybe if it's since that leg chant, I'm just gonna call it a chant, is party specific. Maybe some fights as a Ret you would forego Exorcist to help your party not deal with the sleep and stuff.
So Exorcism can now be cast on any target and has a 100% increased critical strike chance against undead and demons. So for those of you that maybe haven't really played Wrath, Exorcism is a core part of the rotation, really.
Yeah.
You use it with Art of War procs, and it can be used on anything. So really, this leg rune is just turning it into the Wrath of the Lich King Exorcism, which, yeah, pretty cool. Rebuke is another great one. Interrupts spellcasting and prevents any spell in that skull from being cast
That
for
sucks
2
that it's
seconds.
leg on leg.
You will get Rebuke in Cataclysm, and you get it as all specs. So you'd be able to use Holy...
Yeah, I wish they'd, like, it's one of those things where like they're going so top heavy on like some of these things. Like they give you like really good options, and you want to choose more than just the one, right? Like I would like Rebuke, that would be cool. And like if you're like, but obvious, you know, it's like it's kind of rough. Like I wish instead of like a slot thing, they just did a point system, and you know, allowing you to choose more of the like the higher stuff, like, or just the same thing. Like in this case for the legs, right, I'd probably want Exorcist and I'd probably want the Rebuke, but here I have to choose. If it was a point system, I could probably get both of those, but I might have to forego like another thing that I'd want, like a Divine Storm, you know. So that makes you kind of think a bit more, like in terms of like, I feel like it's both more rewarding and kind of more punishing to a degree, maybe. But I wish they'd do a point system versus just here's a slot.
prot, ret, doesn't matter. You'd be able to have an interrupt in all 3 specs. So this is great because you can have an interrupt in all 3 specs. It's going to come down to what you're having to sacrifice from the legs. But again, if you was to think of a Holy Paladin as an example, if it's a fight where you need the pulsing fear resist, you'll use that leg enchant. If there's another fight maybe where you're going to be up close and personal with a boss, healing still, you could be part of an interrupt rotation if, let's say, your group just lacks people with interrupts, or lacks people that would need to use a rune to get an interrupt. Interesting. And the final 3 are glove runes. So the first one is an easy one, Beacon of Light. In recent adjustments leading up to launch, Beacon of Light has actually had its radius changed from 60 yards to 40 yards now, which is not too much of a big deal. We all know what Beacon of Light is. The target becomes a beacon to all members of your party or raid. Any heals you cast on a party or raid member will heal the Beacon of Light for 100%. And only one target can be a Beacon of Light at a time. As somebody who heals ICC, well, heals everything every single week, this is great. Having this in vanilla is going to feel so funky, to the point where, as a Holy Paladin, there's no other rune you're going to get. I can't imagine. Even if there's other runes that you unlock by level 60 on gloves, you're not going to use anything else, are you? Beacon of Light all the way. Crusader Strike's one that we're all going to be very familiar with.
Obviously, that's going to be a ret
more
for
than
sure.
just vanilla and TBC. It's an instant strike.
Oh, and it
causes
regens
75%
mana.
Weapon damage and regenerates 2% of your max.
Okay, so I get some mana regenerate there. Okay,
Mana.
cool.
It was recently changed because it was only on a 4-second cooldown. It's now been put up to a 6-second cooldown.
Which kinda
Probably
sucks.
not going to use anything other than that for ret. And then finally, Hand of Reckoning taunts the target
Obviously.
to attack you, but has no effect.
So it seems like gloves are pretty straightforward. If you're a healer, you get the beacon. If you're ret, you get the Crusader Strike. If you're a tank, you get Hand of Reckoning. Chest also didn't seem like it was too hard. I don't remember the chest ones too much. I remember Divine Storm and the Seal. I think there was Aegis and maybe one other, but like that seemed more pretty obvious what you'd want to go with. Legs feels a bit rough in terms of choosing.
If the target is already attacking you, and while you know this ability, the threat bonus from Righteous Fury is increased to 80%, and Righteous Fury causes you to gain mana when healed by others equal to 25% of the amount healed. So they've basically put in spiritual attunement, so they've brought all the prop paladin sort of things that make it great in Wrath of the Lich King and onwards, and have baked it all into this one rune. Because additionally, while Righteous Fury is active, damage which takes you below 35% health is reduced by 20%. And that, again, in Wrath of the Lich King, is a talent that's a lot further down the tree. And that particular glove rune, as a prop paladin, you wouldn't use anything else, would you? So it looks like the glove runes are almost not optional, and I would say that you're probably going to learn that very early. These are the introductory ones that are going to go on your gloves because they sort of make or break your spec. Keep you waiting
100%.
too long to get these obviously would be ridiculous, because you're not going to tank without Hand of Reckoning, you're not going to want to heal without Beacon of Light, even though you would, and as a ret, you're going to want Crusader Strike. So my guess would be you'll get these in the starting zone very, very early. But that's all the Paladin runes that we know about up until level 25, and I think it's going to be pretty sick. It is so good to see mages get a lot of love.
All right, we're going to jump over to Druid here to wrap up. Looks like the Druid one's pretty quick.
Ability you can press, so I don't know. And finally, the Shapeshifting Druid. The first rune is Sunfire, which burns the enemy for 55 to 65 nature damage, and then an additional 110 over 12 seconds. In addition, while in bear form, cat form, or dire bear form, your Moonfire is replaced with Sunfire Bear, Sunfire Cat, and the spell benefits from and triggers all effects associated with Moonfire. That's really cool when you're like kiting, or even potentially you need to go in bear for a second if you're leveling as a balanced druid. That's pretty cool, but obviously we're not unfamiliar with Sunfire. We've seen Sunfire, in many versions of the game. You're going to get it in vanilla as a boomy, because you would use it as a boomy, because let's face it, Lacerate for your gloves lacerates the enemy target, making them bleed for 42 damage over 15 seconds, plus 20% weapon damage per existing application of Lacerate on the target, and this causes a high amount of threat, and it stacks 5 times. Again, we're not unfamiliar with Lacerate, but as a tanking druid, you would assume Lacerate on your gloves is going to be the one that you pick. Whereas Wild Growth does exactly what Wild Growth does in all the other games, where
pretty straightforward.
it will do a party-wide hot over 7 seconds, and the amount healed is applied quickly at first and slows down as wild growth reaches its full duration. Now, wild growth, since putting the original Druid video out, has actually changed. It's now been increased to 40 yards, and it's got a better coefficient in terms of healing output. The cost of it has gone up by 5% base mana, though, taking it up to 28% now.
That's
There's
fine.
your Resto Druid gloves. And finally, for feral DPS, you're going to get Mangle. So Mangle to target for 160% normal damage and causes the target to take...
I haven't really been paying attention to these slots, but it seems like the glove slots are all pretty straightforward. Like, this is what you pick for this spec kind of thing, which is nice.
30% additional damage from bleed effects and shred for 1 minute. This ability benefits from and triggers all effects associated with claw and maul. So anywhere in talents where it reduces the energy cost of claw or increases the damage of maul, Mangle is also going to benefit from it as well. You'll notice this when we look through all of the classes. As I say, so far we've only done Paladin and now Druid, but the gloves seem to be the early rune that you're probably going to pick up in the starting zone. Moving on to the chest, the first one is Survival of the Fittest. This reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by melee attacks by 6% and reduces
pretty obvious
all damage
tank
taken
thing.
by 10%. Damage taken reduced by an additional 10% while in bear form or dire bear form. So this is an interesting one because it has actually got uses outside of just being in bear form. So outside of just being a tank, this can be useful. But obviously it does make you crit immune, so essentially as any spec, even if you was a
Could be fun
let's
for
say you was going down the
Resto
balanced
if you're doing
talent tree,
PvP.
you could slot this onto your chest, essentially go in bear form and tank, and you'll be uncrittable. Next up on the chest is Living Seed. So when you critically heal your target with any healing spell, you plant a
Obviously
living
healing.
seed on the target for 30% of the amount healed. This seed will bloom when the target is next attacked. It seems fairly obvious that that would be for the healers. There's not really a lot to say there. Now this one is bloody amazing. Wild Strikes. While you're in cat form, bear form, or dire bear form, party members within 20 yards gain increased combat ferocity. Each melee hit has a 20% chance of granting the attacker an extra...
I really do wish they like extended that to just Druid as a whole. That would have been nice. But like I get it, Wild Strikes, right, with how they've at least named it. And then the fact that it is melee based, right? I still wish they would have like worked it so it was a bit different.
Extra attack with 20% additional attack power. No effect if the party member is already benefiting from Wind Fury Totem. I spoke about this in the Paladin video, so this is purely because you're going to have Shamans on the Horde, you're going to have Paladins on the Alliance, so this is how the Alliance can get Wind Fury. I would have naturally assumed it would have been a rune that went on a Paladin, because you have the Shaman abilities, you know, on the Paladin, Paladins on the Shaman, but I actually find it really fitting on a Feral Druid. I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, it's going to be one of those that is far more beneficial for the Alliance, as you would imagine. You know, on the Horde, you're probably going to get a free chest rune, essentially, because as long as you've got a Shaman with you, you might not need to use this. Whereas
that's true.
I think
Druids
most
really
Alliance
wouldn't need
Druids
it.
will almost be
But it would
expected.
also make you not need a Shaman just for that buff, if that's all you needed, right? But I'm pretty sure Shamans have a variety of things. So, yeah.
To be using this. But luckily, the only other one that you'll be able to get up until 25 is Fury of the Storm Rage, which reduces the mana cost of Wrath by 100%, and each time you deal damage with Wrath, you have a 12% chance your next cast of Healing Touch within 15 seconds.
This is definitely going to be really good for Boomkin, right? Because you get that free Wrath, and then as you're leveling, right, you basically can give yourself instant heals, right? If you're getting the shit kicked out of you.
To become instant. Now
or you could even off heal, right? Like you notice like the tank's down, or maybe the healer's down. Like you could kind of help heal basically, which would be really cool.
Probably see that as quite a strange one, because you're like, that is actually a healing talent later on in the expansion. But actually, as a boomy or just leveling as balance, having no mana cost on Wrath, because mana, I don't know if it's going to be an issue in Season of Discovery, but it has been an issue in Vanilla, especially for boomies. That's quite cool. You can help out by throwing the odd healing touch around when you get it up, and your Wrath is free. So yes, you're still going to spend mana on Starfire and stuff, but you can always press something, no matter even if you're room. Those chests are really weird runes, because they do definitely cater themselves just to each.
I do like that it's fairly straightforward in terms of your spec, but that you could still like kind of dip into things if you wanted to. Like for instance, if I was like if I wanted to do PvP, right? Survival of the fittest could be really cool as like a resto druid because you can get that reduced damage. You know, you're not going to be critable. Like that's really good. Alternatively, you know, as resto, or I'm just using resto as an example for PvP here. Like you could literally just cast Wrath and like get those heals like instant. Like that's really cool. Same with like Wild Strikes, right? Could be really good theoretically.
Individual spec, and there's not a lot to play with. But moving on to the legs. Legs appear to be where you're going to get a nice big ability, so I would expect these ones to
Yes, I'm expecting legs to be really difficult choices now.
actually come a little bit later. But for the Boomy, you're going to get Star Surge. You launch Surge in Stellar Energies that cause 57 to 70 arcane damage, and Star Surge
I feel like that's going to be a no-brainer for a Boomkin here. Benefits from triggers, most talents and effects that trigger or benefit. Okay, from Wrath or Starfire. Is it an instant cast? And like, will it replace Starfire? I'm very curious. I think we might have already seen a tooltip for it, and I just don't remember.
It's from and triggers most talents and effects that trigger or benefit from Wrath and Starfire. So again, this is going to be things that increase your crit damage of Starfire and Wrath, increases your damage in general of Starfire and Wrath. This will also scale as you improve Starfire and Wrath with talents.
Okay.
That makes sense. As Resto, you'd be
100%.
trying to get hold of Life Bloom, which
That
reduces
makes
the
sense.
global
So
cooldown
far,
of
this
your
is pretty
Rejuve and
simple
Life
and
Bloom
easy.
abilities by half a second, and you gain the Life Bloom ability. So that
Which is
means you haven't got to
surprising.
worry about getting haste capped, which obviously you can't anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. But obviously, getting the haste cap in Wrath is an important thing to bring your GCD down to 1 second, so you can blanket more people with more hots.
Yeah.
Get that from a rune. But then you also do get Life Bloom, which heals the target for 45 over 7 seconds, and when Life Bloom completes its duration or is dispelled, the target instantly heals for 91, and the Druid regains half the cost of the spell, and this effect can stack up to 3 times. You can see a lot of melee weaving Resto Druids because of clear casting in the Boomy tree. Actually, as Feral, this is quite a decision to be made here, even though
really?
it probably looks pretty obvious. Skull Bash. You charge to a target within 13 yards and bash the target's skull, interrupting spellcasting.
Well, I feel like this, if I was Feral, like maybe I wouldn't choose this if there's already people that have interrupts, right? Which could make for an interesting thing to do here. Because maybe if Star Surge is an instant cast, and if you were able to do it in not a Boomkin form like but Feral, that could be kind of a weird instant shot. And then I guess you could always off heal with Life Bloom. Like I feel like Skull Bash doesn't seem like a needed thing for like any spec, and it would be very situational.
And preventing any spell in that skull from being cast for 2 seconds. It's also worth noting that with Skull Bash, it does actually share a cooldown now with Feral Charge. We all know Skull Bash comes in Kata. It's nice being a Feral with an interrupt, but my choice is going to be taken away from me really because Savage Roar is the final.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's pretty straightforward. So, as Feral, you're choosing Savage Roar. And then I guess it would be fight dependent and party dependent for the Skull Bash.
Like Rune, where this is a finish.
Surprisingly, the Druid stuff, at least from like a PvE perspective, in my opinion, it seems pretty straightforward and easy, which is kind of nice.
Move that increases physical damage done by 30% while in cat form, and it lasts longer per combo point. So 1 point is 14 seconds, all the way up to 5 points, which is 34 seconds. We're all familiar with Savage Roar. It's not something new. It's that buff that you just have to maintain. And it's interesting they use the Wrath of the Lich King version. So if you're not aware, the Wrath of the Lich King version increases all damage by 30%. So bleeds, everything will benefit from it. Whereas when you go into Cataclysm, Savage Roar actually only affects auto attack damage. So we got the better version of it, I would say.
That's really nice.
I'm saying we, like I'm going to be a Feral. I'm not going to be a Feral to my second character. I'm going to be Paladin first. But yeah, a really interesting
Okay, he's going
version of
Paladin.
Savage Roar to get, I think. So as a Druid,
Nice.
having Wind Fury...
But yeah, no, that was cool. That didn't really help me. Like, Season of Discovery is tomorrow, and I still haven't cemented. I'm probably gonna start with Paladin. I might do it for a few levels. I might honestly just play all of these guys for a few levels. It will really depend on Maybe I'll get them all to like 10 and see where I'm going. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm thinking we'll start Paladin. Because I just don't think I'm going to have enough time to like really research more before it kicks off. But I'm thinking Paladin. To start, maybe try to get it to level 10, and maybe mess around with these. Maybe the Paladin will be like the main, right? And then we'll slowly drift into some of these depending on how long the phases are. And then I still haven't looked into professions, but I'm just gonna, like, if I'm doing Paladin first, I'm just gonna go mining, blacksmithing. I feel like that's pretty straightforward and easy, and probably gonna be like the best initial starting thing. So while I'm still having issues, I'm thinking this is gonna be the thing I go for, at least initially. Probably followed quickly by a druid or a priest alt, even though they're not in the alt category, because I'm expecting, if there's gonna be 4 phases, right, or level caps, right, 25, 40, 50, 60, right, that's 4, and then there's still gonna be the end quote unquote end game at 60, right? I imagine, honestly, I don't know. I like when my brain hears season, I think of like Diablo, right? And Diablo is usually like a 3-month thing, but I can't imagine it only lasting 3 months. So I'm gonna picture a year time frame, which just seems really small for a classic era thing, right? Because I feel like they're probably going to, since they have 4 lockouts, right, level wise. My brain wants to say that they're probably going to spend like a good month and a half between phases, right? Which would be 6 months. And then at that point, you have the normal classic era stuff. I feel like a month and a half is probably good per phase, right? Because that gives you enough time to level up, right, to 25 and to get some gear, right? And then from 25 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. I feel like maybe a month and a half is good. Maybe they'll do 2 months. I feel like 2 months might be too long because they have, the four different caps there to get, because that'd be like 8 months, right? And then you still have all of the end game classic vanilla stuff. Not counting whatever they might add to it. So like this season, depending on how they do it, it could be a really long season. Like it could literally be the length, if not longer, than what the classic, WoW Classic, like started at back in like 2019. So I'll be very curious. Maybe they've already said how long the phases are gonna be, but I feel like it's gonna be kind of a weird balance, right? Of giving people enough time to hit whatever the cap's going to be for that phase, and then actually be able to participate in it. Anyways, that's enough rambling from me. We're gonna go Paladin and just kind of see how it goes. Definitely. He had quite a lot of helpful information here for the classes. I know I only did the 3 classes, but I definitely recommend checking out the video here if there's other classes that you were interested in. Anyways, I am gonna head off for the night, and tomorrow I'm hoping to stream about the normal 3 to 5 time. Might be a bit more because of Season of Discovery. If Season of Discovery is even out and like it's not in maintenance hell, right? If it's in maintenance hell, then maybe it won't be Paladin. Maybe I'll do some more research in that time and come to a different conclusion. But if not, Paladin for sure. Anyways, thanks for hanging with me. Really looking forward to Season of Discovery, and really hoping to just have a lot of fun with it. Anyways, thanks, and see you guys tomorrow.